Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I'm Vincent, 32, the middle child who always felt like the family afterthought. Last month, I discovered my sister Natalie was throwing a lavish 10th anniversary party. When I asked why I wasn't invited, my parents casually dismissed it as just a get-together. The pain of exclusion pushed me to show up anyway, but I never expected her 7-year-old son would try to plant evidence in my backpack, or that I'd end the night watching police question my own sister. Before I tell you how a simple family snub spiraled into a criminal investigation, let me know where you're watching from. And hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family who tried to push you aside. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston shaped much of who I am today. Our family home was modest but comfortable, nestled between more affluent areas that my parents always seemed to aspire to. From an early age, the dynamics between my siblings and me were clearly defined in ways that would affect our relationships well into adulthood. My older sister Natalie, now 36, was always the golden child. Everything about her seemed to sparkle in my parents' eyes. She excelled academically, became head cheerleader, and graduated with honors before landing a position at a prestigious marketing firm. Now she's a senior marketing executive with an office overlooking downtown Boston. Her marriage to Derek, a financial advisor from a wealthy family, only cemented her status as the family success story. Their wedding was the social event of the year in our family circle, featured in a local lifestyle magazine, and referenced constantly by my mother at family gatherings for years afterward. At the other end of the spectrum is my younger brother Tyler, 28, the baby of the family and somehow equally favored despite taking a completely different path. Tyler has always been charismatic and charming, able to talk his way out of trouble with a smile. While he's bounced between jobs and relationships, accumulating debt and calling my parents for bailouts more times than I can count, they still dote on him. He's finding himself, my mother would say, while my father would slip him extra cash when he thought no one was looking. Tyler's irresponsibility has never diminished the adoration he receives. And then there's me, stuck in the middle. I've always been the stable one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't cause problems or demand attention. I graduated from a good state college with a degree in computer science, secured a stable job as a software engineer, and have steadily built my career over the last decade. I own my condo, have healthy savings, and have never asked my parents for financial help since college. But somehow, these achievements have never seemed to register with my family. My role became that of peacemaker and emotional support. When Natalie and my parents argued about her wedding plans, I mediated. When Tyler needed a place to crash after another breakup, my couch was available. When my parents needed technical help or advice about retirement accounts, I was their go-to resource. Yet for all the support I provided, I received little recognition in return. Just last month, I received a major promotion at work, becoming a lead developer on an innovative project that could transform our company. When I shared the news at Sunday dinner, my mother nodded politely before turning to gush about Natalie's recent feature in a business magazine. My father asked one question about my salary increase before steering the conversation to Tyler's new girlfriend. The pattern was so familiar it barely stung anymore. Despite these dynamics, I continued to hope that our relationships would improve with time. As adults, surely we could move beyond childhood patterns. I made consistent efforts to stay connected, initiating family gatherings, remembering birthdays, and being present for important events. I believed that maintaining harmony was worth the occasional feelings of invisibility. There had been previous incidents of exclusion, of course. Last year, my parents took Natalie and Tyler on a weekend trip to their lake house without inviting me. When I discovered this through social media photos, they claimed it was spontaneous, and they didn't want to bother me since I'm always busy with work. Then there was Natalie's housewarming party for her new home, to which extended family and friends were invited, but my invitation somehow got lost in the mail. I only found out about it when my cousin Jessica called to ask if I needed a ride there. Each time something like this happened, I swallowed my hurt and tried to move forward. It's not worth creating family drama, I would tell myself. Just let it go. My approach had always been to maintain peace at all costs, even when that cost was my own feelings of belonging and value. Looking back, I realize I had been conditioned to minimize my own needs and accept scraps of attention and affection. I had constructed an identity around being the easy child, the one who wouldn't make waves. This pattern had become so ingrained that I hardly questioned it anymore. I just accepted that my place in the family was peripheral, and that somehow that was normal. It was a random Tuesday evening when I first realized something was off. I was scrolling through Instagram, unwinding after a long day of debugging code, when I saw a post from my cousin Jessica. The image showed an elaborate invitation with gold lettering. "Join us in celebrating Derek and Natalie's 10th anniversary." The date was just 3 weeks away. I stared at my phone, confused. Why hadn't I received an invitation? At first, I assumed it must have been lost in the mail or delivered to my old address by mistake. Natalie and I weren't the closest siblings, but surely she wouldn't deliberately exclude me from such an important celebration. I sent her a casual text. "Hey, saw Jessica's post about your anniversary party. Did my invitation get lost? Looking forward to celebrating with you guys." Hours passed with no response. Eventually, my phone buzzed, but it was just a vague reply. "Oh, we're keeping it small. Talk soon. No clarification, no details, no invitation." I called my best friend Marcus that evening, pacing around my living room as I explained the situation. "Dude, this is classic Natalie," Marcus said. "Remember when she had that graduation party and told you it was just family, but invited all her friends? Your family has been doing this to you for years." "Maybe I'm overthinking it," I suggested, though the knot in my stomach disagreed. "Maybe it really is just a small gathering." "There's one way to find out," Marcus replied. "Call your mom. She can't lie to save her life." Taking his advice, I called my mother the next day, keeping my tone casual as I asked about Natalie's upcoming celebration. "Oh, that," she said, her voice suddenly guarded. "It's nothing formal, Vincent, just a little get-together. Very last minute. I'm sure Natalie would have mentioned it if she thought you'd be interested." As she spoke, I opened Facebook on my laptop and found photos Derek's mother had posted of elaborate flower arrangements being delivered to Natalie's house, with the caption, "Preparations for the big anniversary celebration." The decorations looked anything but last minute or informal. "It looks pretty elaborate for a small get-together," I commented. Jessica showed me the invitation. "Seems pretty formal." My mother's voice tightened. "Well, you know how Natalie is. She likes to make everything fancy, but really, it's just family and a few close friends." "So the family will be there? You and Dad? Tyler?" A pause. "Yes, we'll stop by. Tyler too, I think. But Vincent, you're so busy with your new project. Natalie probably didn't want to impose on your schedule." The excuse was flimsy, and we both knew it. After ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an oversight. I was being deliberately excluded from a family event, and my parents were complicit in the exclusion. Later that week, I called my father under the pretense of asking advice about a home repair. After chatting about water heaters for 20 minutes, I casually mentioned Natalie's party. "Oh, that," he echoed my mother's dismissive tone. "It's just a small gathering, son. Nothing to worry about missing." That same evening, I overheard more truth while on a video call with Tyler about fantasy football. In the background of his apartment, I could hear him talking to someone about picking up a custom anniversary cake that weekend. "Yeah, it's going to be like 50 people, he was saying. "Natalie's going all out. Typical." When he returned to our call, I asked directly, "So, you're going to Natalie and Derek's anniversary party?" Tyler's face fell. "Oh, you know about that?" "Seems like everyone knows about it except me," I replied. "Or rather, everyone's invited except me." Tyler had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Look, man, I don't know what's going on with that. You should talk to Natalie." I tried. She brushed me off. Mom and Dad both called it just a get-together, even though it clearly isn't. Tyler fidgeted with his headphone cord. "I don't want to get in the middle of this, Vince, but maybe just let it go? You know how Natalie gets when she feels challenged." His response confirmed what I already suspected. This exclusion was deliberate, and everyone was aware of it. The realization sat heavy in my chest, a familiar weight of rejection that I'd carried since childhood but had never fully acknowledged. That night, I called Marcus again. "I've confirmed it," I told him. "They're all going. Extended family, friends, probably neighbors and colleagues too. Everyone but me." "So what are you going to do about it?" Marcus asked. The question hung in the air. What would I do? My usual pattern would be to swallow the hurt. Pretend it didn't matter. Maybe send a nice gift to show I wasn't bothered. But something inside me had reached a breaking point. "I'm thinking of showing up anyway," I said, surprising even myself with the declaration. "Now we're talking." Marcus sounded genuinely excited. "It's about time you stood up for yourself, Vince. Your family has been walking all over you for years. Is it petty? Showing up uninvited? It's not petty to expect to be included in family events. The petty ones are the people excluding you and then lying about it." By the end of our conversation, my decision was made. For once, I wouldn't quietly accept being pushed aside. I would show up, politely but firmly asserting my place in the family. The thought filled me with anxiety but also a strange sense of liberation. After years of keeping the peace at my own expense, I was finally going to stand up for myself. The day of the party arrived with perfect early autumn weather. I spent the morning vacillating between determination and doubt, changing my outfit 3 times before settling on a navy blue suit that projected confidence without seeming overdressed. I selected a gift, an expensive bottle of whiskey for Derek and a pair of silver photo frames for Natalie, wrapped them carefully, and tucked them into my backpack along with my laptop. Having my work with me would give me a plausible excuse to leave early if things became too uncomfortable. As I drove toward Natalie and Derek's suburban home, my palms grew sweaty on the steering wheel. Their house was the largest in an exclusive development, a 5-bedroom colonial with professionally landscaped grounds and a 3-car garage. Today, the circular driveway was filled with cars, confirming what I already knew: this was no small gathering. From outside, I could see fairy lights strung across the backyard, white tents erected on the lawn, and staff in uniform moving about with trays. A banner hung across the back patio, celebrating 10 years of love. A string quartet played near the garden. This was a full-scale event, meticulously planned and lavishly executed, the polar opposite of the just a get-together my parents had described. I parked on the street and walked slowly up the driveway, gift bag in hand, heart pounding so loudly I was sure others could hear it. Before I could even ring the doorbell, the door opened and my mother stood there, champagne glass in hand, her smile freezing when she saw me. "Vincent, what are you? What a surprise." Her voice pitched higher than normal, eyes darting nervously behind her. "I came to celebrate Natalie and Derek's anniversary," I said calmly, stepping forward so she had to move aside or physically block me. She moved aside. Of course," she flustered, reaching to straighten my already straight tie. "We just didn't think you'd be interested, with your work schedule and all." My father appeared behind her, his face cycling through surprise, discomfort, and then forced joviality. "Vincent, good to see you, son. Come in, come in." He led me through the house to the back patio where most of the guests were gathered. I could feel eyes turning toward us as we emerged from the house, curious glances and whispered comments. And then I saw Natalie, resplendent in a silvery cocktail dress, her arm linked with Derek's as they chatted with a group of well-dressed guests. Her face, when she spotted me, was a study in barely concealed annoyance. She excused herself from her conversation and approached, Derek trailing behind with a more genuinely confused expression. "Vincent," she said, her voice tight. "What a surprise! I didn't think you'd be able to make it." "Wouldn't miss my only sister's 10th anniversary," I replied, extending the gift bag. "Congratulations to you both." Derek, always more socially adept than my sister, stepped forward to shake my hand. "Thanks for coming, man. Great to see you." His confusion seemed sincere. Perhaps he'd assumed Natalie had invited me after all. "Let me get you a drink," he offered, signaling to a passing waiter. "The bar is fully stocked." As Derek attempted to make small talk about my job, I noticed Natalie pulling my mother aside, their heated whispers partially visible from across the patio. My father had already disappeared into a conversation with Derek's dad, clearly avoiding potential conflict. Over the next hour, I circulated through the party, confirming what I'd suspected. This was a major event with at least 60 guests, including extended family members I rarely saw, several of my parents' friends, and even a few mutual acquaintances from our school days. Everyone seemed surprised to see me, with variations of, "Oh, we didn't know you were coming," repeated so often it became almost comical. My Aunt Susan grabbed my arm as I passed. "Vincent, I was just asking your mother where you were. She said you were too busy with work to attend. So glad you could make it after all." Cousin Jessica was even more direct. "Dude, I specifically asked Natalie if you were coming when I got the invitation. She said you declined because of some big project deadline. With each interaction, the deliberate nature of my exclusion became clearer. Natalie hadn't just failed to invite me, she had actively lied about my absence to others. I was refilling my water glass when I felt a small tug on my jacket. Looking down, I saw Natalie's children, Emma and Jacob, aged 9 and 7. "Uncle Vincent!" Emma exclaimed, giving me a genuine smile that contrasted sharply with her mother's reception. "Mom didn't say you were coming to the party." "It was a last-minute decision," I explained, kneeling down to their level. "How are you guys doing? You both look very fancy today." As the children chatted excitedly about the party preparations and the chocolate fountain they were waiting to use, I caught sight of Natalie watching us from across the room, her expression unreadable. When our eyes met, she quickly turned away, leaning to whisper something to Derek that made him frown and glance in my direction. Finding a quiet corner near the garden, I took a moment to collect my thoughts. The beautiful setting and celebration only highlighted the pain of knowing I'd been deliberately excluded from this family milestone. Part of me wanted to confront Natalie directly, but another part recognized that creating a scene would only validate whatever reasons she had given for not wanting me there. They've been planning this for months, you know. I turned to find a woman I didn't recognize standing beside me, elegant in a red dress, dark hair swept up in a complicated arrangement. "I'm Sophia," she said, extending her hand. "Derek's colleague. And you must be Vincent, the mysterious absent brother." "Not so absent today," I replied, shaking her hand. "Natalie mentioned you were estranged from the family," Sophia continued, sipping her champagne. "Said there was bad blood, and that's why you weren't invited. But you don't seem like someone here to cause trouble." "Estranged? That's news to me. I had Sunday dinner with them last month." The revelation that Natalie had been characterizing our relationship as estranged to justify my exclusion stung more than I expected. Sophia shrugged. "Family dynamics can be complicated. I should know I haven't spoken to my brother in years." She gestured toward the house. "I'm headed inside to freshen up. The guest bathroom line is ridiculous, but Derek mentioned there's another one upstairs if you need it later." As she walked away, I noticed Natalie tracking her movement, then turning her gaze to me with unmistakable hostility. Whatever was happening here went beyond simple sibling rivalry or casual exclusion. The deliberate lies about my relationship with the family suggested something deeper and more troubling was at play. Around 8 o'clock, I needed some space from the increasingly uncomfortable atmosphere. Following Sophia's tip about the upstairs bathroom, I headed into the house, my backpack slung over one shoulder. I had been carrying it throughout the evening, partly because I didn't want to leave my laptop unattended and partly because it served as a kind of security blanket in this hostile territory. The upstairs hallway was quiet, a stark contrast to the lively celebration below. Family photos lined the walls: Natalie and Derek's wedding, vacations, their children's milestones. I noticed that in the few family group photos, I was often standing at the edge, slightly separate from the tight cluster of my parents, with Natalie and Tyler. After using the bathroom, I decided to take a few minutes alone to regroup before returning to the party. The guest bedroom door was ajar, revealing a tastefully decorated space with a large bay window overlooking the backyard. I stepped inside and placed my backpack on the bed, taking a seat beside it and pulling out my phone to check emails. I had just started responding to a work message when I heard small footsteps in the hallway, followed by whispered conversation. Emma and Jacob appeared in the doorway, their faces lighting up when they saw me. "Uncle Vincent, we've been looking for you," Emma said, bouncing slightly in her party dress. "Mom said we should come find you," Jacob added, his voice carrying a note that struck me as odd, almost rehearsed. "Did she now?" I replied, surprised given Natalie's obvious displeasure at my presence. The children entered the room, Emma chattering about the party while Jacob circled around to the other side of the bed where my backpack Saturday. As I responded to Emma's questions about my work and apartment, I kept Jacob in my peripheral vision. His movements seemed strangely purposeful for a 7-year-old at a fancy party. Then I saw a quick, furtive motion as Jacob slipped something from his pocket into the side compartment of my backpack. His eyes darted to me immediately, checking if I had noticed. I maintained my conversation with Emma, pretending to be completely engrossed, but my mind was racing. "Jacob," Emma said suddenly, "Mom said we need to go back downstairs for the cake cutting." "Right," Jacob nodded, giving me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Bye, Uncle Vincent. See you downstairs." As soon as they left, I unzipped the compartment of my backpack where Jacob had placed the mystery item. Inside was a small velvet jewelry box, navy blue with silver trim. With mounting confusion, I opened it to find a pair of diamond earrings, elegant teardrop designs, with what appeared to be genuine, high-quality stones. I stared at the earrings, my stomach dropping as I realized what had just happened. These weren't just any earrings. They were the ones I had noticed Sophia wearing earlier at the party. The distinctive design was unmistakable. Somehow, Jacob had gotten hold of them, and under what must have been Natalie's instruction, had planted them in my backpack. My mind raced through the implications. Was this a setup? Was Natalie planning to accuse me of theft? The realization hit me with sickening clarity. This wasn't just about excluding me from a party. This was a deliberate attempt to humiliate me, to create a scenario where I would be caught with stolen property in my possession. My first instinct was confrontation, to march downstairs and expose the scheme. But years of family dynamics had taught me that direct confrontation with Natalie rarely ended in my favor. I needed to be smarter about this. Quickly, I used my phone to take photos of the earrings in the box, then additional photos of the box in my backpack exactly as I had found it. I even recorded a brief video narrating what had just happened, time-stamping the evidence. Then I carefully resealed the box and considered my options. If I left the earrings in my backpack, I was walking into Natalie's trap. If I confronted her immediately, it would create a scene that would likely be twisted to make me look like the aggressor. The wisest course of action seemed to be returning the earrings in a way that couldn't be traced back to me, then observing what unfolded. I slipped the jewelry box into my suit pocket and headed back downstairs, moving carefully through the crowd until I spotted Natalie's silvery cocktail dress. She had draped her designer jacket over a chair near the gift table. With the practiced nonchalance of someone who had grown up as the overlooked middle child, I casually passed by the chair, discreetly slipping the jewelry box into her jacket pocket as I pretended to admire a nearby flower arrangement. For the next 20 minutes, I positioned myself where I could observe both Sophia and Natalie. Sophia seemed to be enjoying herself, though she occasionally touched her earlobes with a slight frown, perhaps beginning to realize her earrings were missing. Natalie, meanwhile, kept glancing in my direction, her expression a mixture of impatience and anticipation. I decided to accelerate whatever plan was in motion. Approaching Sophia directly, I struck up a conversation about her work with Derek's firm. As we chatted, I casually mentioned how elegant her earrings had been when she arrived. "Oh," she touched her earlobes again, her eyes widening. "They're gone. I was wearing my grandmother's diamond earrings. They must have fallen out." Her distress seemed genuine as she began searching the ground around us. "They're irreplaceable, a family heirloom. I need to find them." "When did you last definitely have them?" I asked, playing the role of concerned fellow guest. "I went to the restroom upstairs about an hour ago," Sophia said, her voice tight with worry. "I remember touching them while looking in the mirror. They must have fallen out somewhere since then." As Sophia's distress attracted attention from nearby guests, I noticed Natalie watching the scene unfold, a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Whatever she had planned, it was now in motion, but not in the way she expected. The party atmosphere quickly shifted as word spread about Sophia's missing earrings. Guests began looking under tables and chairs, retracing Sophia's steps throughout the evening. Derek, ever the considerate host, was particularly attentive to her distress, which seemed to irritate Natalie. She remained near the gift table, occasionally touching her jacket as if to confirm something was still there. Taking advantage of the commotion, I approached Natalie directly for the first time that evening, my expression neutral. "Quite a party," I commented. "Definitely more than the small get-together Mom described." Natalie's eyes narrowed. "Why are you really here, Vincent? You weren't invited for a reason. And what reason would that be?" I kept my voice low, aware of nearby guests. "Why exclude your own brother from your anniversary celebration?" She glanced around before pulling me aside into the kitchen, away from the main gathering. "Don't play innocent. You know exactly why I don't want you here." "Actually, I don't," I replied. "But I'd love to hear your explanation for lying to everyone about me declining an invitation I never received." The kitchen was empty, except for a caterer arranging desserts at the far end. Natalie's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "After what you did? You're lucky I even speak to you at family dinners." What exactly is it you think I did? You stole from me, Vincent. The accusation burst from her with unexpected venom. $3,000 from our joint investment. Mom and Dad know all about it. I stared at her in genuine shock. What are you talking about? We've never had a joint investment. The real estate venture last year, she hissed. Don't pretend you don't remember. The money disappeared, and you were the only one with access besides me. The revelation stunned me into momentary silence. Last year, Natalie had indeed approached me about pooling resources for a small real estate investment, but after initial discussions, she had told me she was pursuing it with a different partner. I had never contributed any money, never signed any documents, never had access to any accounts. Natalie, we never finalized that investment. You told me you were going with someone else. More lies, she scoffed. Mom and Dad know the truth. Even Tyler knows. Why do you think everyone's been so cold to you lately? We've just been waiting for you to own up to it, but you keep pretending nothing happened. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. The increased distance from my parents, the cancellation of our traditional monthly family dinners, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. For months, my family had apparently believed I had stolen from my sister, and not one of them had directly confronted me or asked for my side of the story. Before I could respond, Derek entered the kitchen, his expression concerned. Everything okay in here? Fine, Natalie replied sharply. Just catching up with my brother. Derek looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. Well, Sophia is pretty upset about those earrings. We should probably help with the search. I'm sure they'll turn up, Natalie said with a pointed look at me that made her implication clear. Actually, I said calmly, have you checked your jacket pocket? Sometimes people pick up items absent-mindedly. Her face flickered with surprise before hardening again. Why would Sophia's earrings be in my jacket? Just a suggestion, I replied. It might be worth checking. Derek, eager to resolve the situation, nodded. Good idea. I'll grab your jacket from the chair. As Derek left, Natalie stepped closer to me, her voice a venomous whisper. I don't know what game you're playing, but it won't work. Everyone here knows who you really are. And who is that exactly? I asked, maintaining my composure. The jealous middle child who's never accomplished anything meaningful. The one who resents his successful sister so much he'd steal from her. The afterthought. Her words struck with practiced precision, targeting insecurities she knew existed. But something had changed in me since arriving at the party. The evidence of her deliberate exclusion and apparent setup had strengthened my resolve. That's an interesting perspective, I said. But I wonder what everyone would think if they knew you sent your 7-year-old son to plant stolen jewelry in my backpack. Her face paled slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Jacob isn't as sneaky as you might think. I saw him, Natalie. I have photos of the earrings and where they were placed. And now, somehow, they're in your jacket pocket. Care to explain that? Before she could respond, raised voices from the patio interrupted us. Our parents had entered the fray, my mother's voice carrying into the kitchen. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Vincent would never. We moved back to the main party area to find an uncomfortable scene unfolding. My father stood with his arm around my mother, who appeared distressed. Tyler hovered nearby, looking uncharacteristically serious. Derek was returning with Natalie's jacket, and Sophia stood in the center of it all, visibly upset. What's going on? Natalie demanded, stepping forward to take her jacket from Derek. Your mother suggested we might want to check everyone's belongings, Sophia explained, her voice strained. Which seems extreme, but these earrings were my grandmother's. My mother's eyes darted to me, then away quickly, too quickly. The implication was clear. She suspected me. The realization that my own mother would so readily believe me capable of theft cut deeply. Actually, Derek said, Vincent suggested checking Natalie's jacket pockets first. All eyes turned to me, then to Natalie, who clutched her jacket defensively. That's ridiculous. Why would Sophia's earrings be in my jacket? Only one way to find out, Derek said gently, extending his hand. With obvious reluctance, Natalie began searching through her jacket pockets. I watched her face as her fingers encountered the velvet box, her expression shifting from confidence to confusion to barely concealed panic. Slowly, she withdrew the navy jewelry box from the pocket. What's that? Sophia asked, stepping forward. Natalie stared at the box in her hand as if it were a live snake. I don't. This isn't mine. I don't know how this got here. Open it, Derek suggested, his voice now carrying a note of concern. With trembling fingers, Natalie opened the box, revealing the diamond earrings. A collective gasp went through the gathering of nearby guests. "Those are mine!" Sophia exclaimed, reaching for the box. "How did they end up in your jacket, Natalie?" Natalie's face flushed red. "I have no idea. Someone must have put them there." Her eyes locked on me accusingly. "Vincent, did you do this?" "Why would I put Sophia's earrings in your jacket?" I asked calmly. "To set me up!" Natalie's voice rose sharply. "Just like you're trying to deny stealing from our investment." The party had gone completely silent, all attention focused on our family drama unfolding in real time. My father stepped forward, attempting to defuse the situation. "Let's discuss this privately, shall we? The important thing is the earrings have been found. I think we should discuss it right now," I said firmly, "because I'm tired of being accused of things I didn't do. Natalie, we never finalized that investment. You told me you went with another partner. I never had access to any accounts, never signed any documents, and certainly never took any money from you." "That's not true," Natalie insisted. "Mom, Dad, tell him. You've seen the paperwork." My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. My father cleared his throat. "We did see documents showing the withdrawal, but we never saw the original investment agreement." "Because there wasn't one," I stated. "At least not with me." "Then how do you explain the missing money?" Natalie demanded. Before I could answer, a small voice interrupted from nearby. Mom told Jacob to put the earrings in Uncle Vincent's bag. Emma stood at the edge of the crowd, her young face serious. I heard her. She said it would teach him a lesson. The silence that followed was deafening. Jacob, standing beside his sister, looked terrified, his eyes filling with tears. "I'm sorry, Uncle Vincent," he whispered. "Mom said you took her money and deserved it." Derek stared at his wife in shocked disbelief. "Natalie, what is Emma talking about?" Natalie's composure cracked completely. "They're lying. Both of them. Vincent has turned my own children against me." "I have video," I said quietly, pulling out my phone. "Of the earrings in my backpack where Jacob placed them, and me removing them. Time-stamped from earlier this evening." As the situation spiraled further out of control, the doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Derek, looking relieved at the interruption, went to answer it. He returned moments later, his face grave. "The police are here," he announced. Apparently someone called them about a theft. 2 uniformed police officers entered the backyard, their presence immediately creating a ripple effect through the remaining party guests. The string quartet had long since stopped playing, and the celebration atmosphere had completely evaporated, replaced by uncomfortable tension and whispered conversations. "Good evening," the taller officer said, looking around at the well-dressed crowd. "I'm Officer Reynolds, and this is Officer Diaz. We received a call about a theft at this address." Derek stepped forward, attempting to maintain some semblance of control over the situation. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding. Some jewelry went missing, but has been recovered." "Actually," Natalie interrupted, her voice steady despite her flushed face, "the situation isn't resolved. My brother Vincent attempted to steal valuable earrings from one of our guests." All eyes turned to me. I maintained my composure, despite the sick feeling in my stomach at being publicly accused. "That's a serious accusation," Officer Reynolds noted, turning to me. "Sir, would you mind telling us your name?" "Vincent Miller. And I didn't steal anything. In fact, I have evidence that this was a deliberate setup." Officer Diaz took out a notebook. "Let's start from the beginning. Whose earrings went missing?" Sophia stepped forward. "Mine. They're diamond earrings, family heirlooms, but they've been found now in Natalie's jacket pocket." "And how did they get there?" Officer Reynolds asked. "Her son put them in my backpack," I explained. "I saw him do it, pretended not to notice, then documented it, and moved the earrings to Natalie's jacket to avoid being framed." Natalie laughed incredulously. "That's absurd. Why would I ask my 7-year-old son to steal jewelry and plant it on my brother?" "Perhaps we should check the gentleman's backpack first," Officer Diaz suggested, clearly trying to follow procedure despite the unusual circumstances. "By all means," I agreed, retrieving my backpack from where I'd left it on a nearby chair. "Search anything you'd like." The officers conducted a thorough search of my backpack, finding nothing but my laptop, a notebook, and the wrapped anniversary gift I'd brought. Natalie watched with growing agitation, her confident expression faltering as no evidence of theft emerged. "As you can see," I said calmly, "there's nothing there. But I do have this." I showed them the photos and video I'd taken when discovering the earrings in my backpack, complete with timestamps. Officer Reynolds examined my phone carefully. "This shows the earrings were in your bag at 7:43 this evening." "Yes, placed there by Jacob under his mother's instruction," I confirmed. "And I have witnesses who can verify that Jacob approached my bag around that time." "He's manipulating the situation," Natalie protested. "Vincent has always been jealous of my success. He probably stole the earrings himself and is trying to frame me now." "That doesn't explain how the earrings ended up in your jacket pocket, Mrs. Miller," Officer Diaz pointed out. "He must have put them there," Natalie insisted. Actually, Emma piped up again from where she stood with a catering staff member who had been watching over the children. "I saw Uncle Vincent take something from his backpack and put it in Mom's jacket. But that was after Jacob put something in the backpack. Mom told him to." Jacob, looking miserable, nodded in confirmation. "Mom said Uncle Vincent is a thief and deserved to be caught. She said to put the earrings in his bag and then tell Aunt Sophia to check there." Derek looked at his son, then at his wife, devastation clear on his face. "Natalie, what have you done?" Natalie's facade crumbled entirely. "You don't understand. He stole from me thousands of dollars. This was justice." "I never stole a penny from you," I said firmly. "We never finalized any investment. You've been lying to everyone about this for over a year." Tyler, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the confrontation, finally spoke up. "He's right, Natalie. I saw the paperwork when you showed Mom and Dad. Vincent's signature was obviously forged. It didn't even look like his handwriting." My parents stared at Tyler in shock. My mother found her voice first. "You knew? And you didn't say anything?" Tyler shrugged uncomfortably. "Natalie said she had other proof. And I didn't want to get involved. I'm sorry, Vince. I should have spoken up sooner." The revelation that my younger brother had recognized the forgery, but remained silent, hit hard. But even more shocking was watching my parents' expressions as they processed this information, doubt finally creeping into their features. "So you're saying," my father began slowly, looking at me, "that you never took money from Natalie's investment?" "I never had access to any investment," I confirmed. "We discussed the possibility, but Natalie told me she decided to go with someone else. I never signed anything, never had account access, never contributed or withdrew funds." All eyes turned to Natalie, who had begun to tremble visibly. Derek placed a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off violently. "Fine," she burst out. "The investment failed, okay? I lost the money, all of it. I needed someone to blame, and Vincent was the easy target. He's always been the forgettable one, the one no one really pays attention to. Who would question it?" The brutal honesty of her admission silenced the room. Even the police officers seemed taken aback by the sudden confession. "So you fabricated a theft, blamed your brother, turned your family against him, and then attempted to frame him for another crime tonight?" Officer Reynolds clarified, his professional tone tinged with disbelief. "And you used your 7-year-old son to do it," Derek added, his voice hollow with disappointment. Sophia, who had been quietly following the unfolding drama, stepped forward. "I want to press charges," she stated firmly. "Not against Vincent, obviously, but against Natalie. Those earrings are worth over $10,000 and are irreplaceable family heirlooms. She instructed her child to take them from me and use them in some twisted family revenge plot." "Wait," Natalie protested, panic rising in her voice. "This is a family matter. We can resolve this privately." This crossed the line from family matter to criminal activity when you stole valuable property and attempted to frame someone else, Officer Diaz pointed out. As the police officers began taking formal statements from everyone involved, the remaining party guests quickly made their excuses and departed. My parents stood together in stunned silence, occasionally attempting to approach me before retreating again, clearly unsure what to say. Tyler was more direct. "I really messed up, Vince," he admitted, joining me where I sat at an empty table. "I knew something wasn't right with that signature, but it was easier to go along with Natalie's story. I'm sorry, man. Really sorry. Why didn't you at least ask me about it?" I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. "Honestly, because Natalie has always been so convincing, and because I'm a coward," he shook his head. "I should have been a better brother." As the evening wore on, statements were taken, and the police officers explained the potential consequences of filing false reports and attempted framing. Derek took the children inside, away from the unpleasant scene. Sophia retrieved her earrings, casting a disgusted glance at Natalie before departing. By midnight, what should have been a joyous anniversary celebration had devolved into a family reckoning that would have consequences far beyond this single evening. As I prepared to leave, my mother caught my arm, tears streaming down her face. "Vincent, I don't know what to say. We should have asked you. Should have given you a chance to explain." "Yes," I agreed simply. "You should have." There was no satisfaction in seeing my family's realization of their mistake, only a profound sadness that it had taken such an extreme event to bring the truth to light. As I drove home in the quiet darkness, I felt both vindicated and hollow, unsure how or if our family could ever recover from this night. The days following Natalie's anniversary party unfolded in a blur of uncomfortable conversations and shifting family dynamics. The morning after, my phone buzzed constantly with text messages and voicemails from family members, ranging from my parents' tearful apologies to Tyler's awkward attempts at reconciliation. Natalie, unsurprisingly, remained silent. I took a few days off work to process everything that had happened. The revelation that my family had so readily believed the worst of me without even asking for my side of the story cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Years of being the overlooked middle child had conditioned me to accept less, but this betrayal exceeded anything I'd experienced before. 3 days after the party, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced, carrying containers of my favorite homemade lasagna as a peace offering. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed from crying, and my father looked 10 years older, his shoulders hunched with remorse. "We should have asked you," my mother repeated, echoing her words from the party. "We just assumed Natalie was telling the truth." "Because she always has?" I suggested, letting them in but maintaining emotional distance. "Because it was easier," my father admitted with unexpected honesty. "Natalie has always been so forceful, so certain. Questioning her meant conflict, and we've always avoided conflict. At my expense," I pointed out. They couldn't deny it. We sat at my small dining table, the untouched lasagna between us, having the first truly honest conversation of our adult lives. I explained how their pattern of overlooking me in favor of my siblings had affected me, how their ready acceptance of Natalie's accusation without ever confronting me directly had confirmed my worst fears about my place in the family. "We want to make this right," my mother insisted. "Tell us how." "I'm not sure you can," I replied truthfully. "But starting now, I need boundaries, I need respect, and I need time to figure out if I can trust you again." It wasn't what they wanted to hear, but they accepted it with newfound humility. As they left, my father turned back. "We're proud of you, Vincent. We should have said that more often." The words I'd longed to hear for years now felt bittersweet in the context of our fractured relationship. Tyler came next, showing up at my door with a 6-pack of craft beer and genuine contrition. Unlike our parents, he didn't attempt to justify his silence. "I knew something was off with that signature," he admitted as we sat on my balcony, "but Natalie has always been so good at making me doubt myself. Plus, I was dealing with my own mess, another failed relationship, money problems. It was easier to keep my head down." "You saw they were shutting me out and said nothing," I reminded him. "I know. I'm sorry, Vince. Really sorry." He stared at his beer bottle. "For what it's worth, I've always admired you. You've got your life together in ways I never have." The admission surprised me. "You never showed it." "I know. Jealousy, I guess. You're the responsible one, the successful one. I'm the screw-up who can't keep a job or a girlfriend. It's easier to join in making fun of you than admit I wish I had your stability." His honesty opened the door to a new kind of relationship between us, one based on authenticity rather than the roles we'd been assigned in childhood. Before leaving, Tyler promised to be a better brother going forward, a promise I cautiously accepted. Natalie's situation was more complicated. She faced potential legal charges from Sophia, though these were eventually dropped in exchange for a substantial donation to a charity of Sophia's choice. The social consequences were more severe. Several friends and colleagues distanced themselves after hearing about the incident, and her carefully cultivated image suffered significant damage. Derek reached out to me 2 weeks after the party, asking if we could meet for coffee without Natalie. He arrived looking exhausted, the strain of the situation evident in the new lines around his eyes. She's starting therapy, he informed me without preamble. The anniversary fiasco was a wake-up call. She struggled with anxiety and insecurity for years but refused to address it. Now she doesn't have a choice. What about the investment money she lost? I asked. Derek sighed heavily. There was no failed investment. She spent the money shopping, spa treatments, things she thought she deserved but we couldn't afford. Then she panicked and needed someone to blame. The revelation wasn't entirely surprising but still disappointing. And the children? How are they doing? Confused. Upset. Emma keeps asking why her mother would lie. Jacob feels guilty for his part in it, even though he was just following instructions. Derek ran a hand through his hair. We've started family counseling. It's going to be a long road back. For all of us, I agreed. A month after the anniversary party, I received an unexpected email from Sophia. She'd gotten my contact information from Derek and wanted to meet for lunch. Curious, I agreed, and we met at a quiet restaurant downtown. I wanted to thank you properly, she said after we ordered. Not many people would have handled that situation with such composure. I'm not sure I had much choice, I admitted. Oh, you did. You could have confronted your sister immediately, created a scene. Instead, you gathered evidence and let the truth emerge naturally. She smiled. It was impressive. Also, Derek mentioned you're single, and I thought perhaps we might get to know each other better, under less dramatic circumstances. The lunch turned into dinner, and dinner into regular dates. Sophia's directness and honesty were refreshing after years of navigating my family's unspoken expectations and shifting alliances. For the first time, I felt fully seen and appreciated by someone who had no preconceptions about who I should be. 6 months after the disastrous anniversary party, my family gathered for Thanksgiving at my parents' home. Natalie attended with Derek and the children, her demeanor markedly different, quieter, more thoughtful, less demanding of attention. She approached me privately while others were watching football in the living room. I've been trying to write you a letter for months, she admitted, but nothing seemed adequate. You can try speaking from the heart, I suggested. It's what my therapist recommends. She nodded, taking a deep breath. I'm sorry, Vincent, not just for the party, but for years of making you feel less than. I've been working through a lot in therapy why I felt so threatened by you, why I needed to be the center of attention. It doesn't excuse what I did, but I'm trying to understand it so I never repeat it. That's a start, I acknowledged, neither accepting nor rejecting her apology outright. It's going to take time to rebuild trust. I know. I'm willing to put in the work if you're willing to give me the chance. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was an honest beginning. Throughout the day, I noticed other changes too, my parents making a point to ask about my work and actually listening to the answers. Tyler sharing credit for a business idea we'd discussed, rather than presenting it as solely his own. Even the children, Emma and Jacob, seeming more relaxed around me, free from the tension their mother had previously projected. The following month, my parents invited the entire family to a holiday gathering. When the invitation arrived, I considered declining. Setting boundaries was still important to me. After discussing it with Sophia, who had become a steadying presence in my life, I called my mother to negotiate terms that respected my needs while maintaining family connections. The dinner wasn't perfect. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, but there was a new awareness, a conscious effort from everyone to create healthier interactions. As we prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside. I'm proud of the man you've become, Vincent, he said, his voice gruff with emotion. Not despite our mistakes, but perhaps because you had to overcome them. Driving home with Sophia beside me, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The pain of exclusion and betrayal had forced a reckoning that, while traumatic, had ultimately freed me from patterns that had constrained me for decades. By standing up for myself that night at Natalie's party, I had changed not only how my family saw me, but how I saw myself. What are you thinking about? Sophia asked, reaching for my hand. That sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people we love most, I replied. And that sometimes you need to be willing to break patterns to heal relationships. The road ahead with my family would never be simple, but for the first time it felt honest. We were relating to each other as the complex adults we had become, not the roles we had been assigned in childhood. That authenticity, painful though its birth had been, was worth more than any superficial harmony built on imbalance and denial. Have you ever had to stand up to family who tried to minimize or dismiss you? Comment below with your experience and how you handled it. Sometimes the most important step in healing family relationships is setting clear boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even with family. Thank you for listening to my story today. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself.